The following is a paid program. The views and opinions expressed don't necessarily reflect those of NCI-FM.
Welcome to Speaking Up with Jessica Dumas. I'm a certified life coach that specializes in business, leadership, and all things speaking and confidence mindset. Let's chat. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for sharing some airtime with me through these radio waves coming to you from NCI-FM. And I hope that you are doing your best to show up as best as you can in everything that you do. That's just something that I feel like I like to start my day with. And even though it's mid-afternoon, that's what I'm sharing. I have a guest with me today. So if you are out there listening, pay attention to this one. It's going to be really good. Have you heard of Indigenous tourism? I did some work back in the day before I became a full-time entrepreneur, and I was working with Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada. And during that time, it was really interesting for me to learn about Indigenous tourism. But because I was coming from a place of being the chairperson for the Indigenous Chamber of Commerce, I kept getting tourism and Indigenous business mixed up. So I'm really excited to introduce my guest. Her name is Holly Kershane. She's the CEO of Indigenous Tourism Manitoba, and she's going to help us understand that difference. Hi, Holly. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good. Thanks so much for being here. So tell us, what do you do and what is Indigenous tourism?
Okay, well, I'm the CEO of Indigenous Tourism Manitoba. First, I'd like to say I'm from Peguis First Nation, where I was born and raised. Some of my previous experience is being an entrepreneur myself. I've owned a few businesses in the community, and I do understand those barriers that exist trying to operate a business within that community. I feel like I was able to navigate through some of those barriers, even though they were very difficult. And through that, I've developed a passion for really helping other businesses navigate those barriers. So Indigenous Tourism Manitoba is a fairly new organization, and it's one of the chapters located throughout Canada. And we really take direction from the Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada and Travel Manitoba. So those two larger tourism organizations have really been the reason why Indigenous Tourism Manitoba exists here. And, we do need an Indigenous-led tourism association. And this is why Indigenous Tourism Manitoba exists.
So cool. So I love Indigenous-led and I love entrepreneurship. And I think that is such a natural thing that our people have within them, but it's not a language that we use all the time. So to talk about entrepreneurship. But when it comes to tourism, what's the difference?
So the difference is tourism is basically an industry, and there's different types of businesses that would qualify as a tourism business in that industry. For example, accommodations are listed as a tourism business. We have like guided tours, restaurants, gift shops, museums, Indigenous experiences. And to be an Indigenous tourism experience, it has to be at least 51% owned by an Indigenous person.
Okay, so that's so exciting. There's so many opportunities. And who are some Manitobans that listeners may have heard of that would be an example of an Indigenous tourism experience?
Yeah, for sure. I have a few examples. Like, of course, I always use David Daly, who's located up in Churchill, Manitoba. He's on the board of the Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada, as well as the chair of Indigenous Tourism Manitoba. He operates Wapusk Adventures. So it's a 1-hour dog sledding experience, and he has a lot of international travelers coming. And we've heard that it's one of the top experiences that's being offered in Churchill. He also owns an accommodation called Aurora Inn up there. And then they do some evening and nighttime aurora borealis viewing experiences outside the dog yard, sitting around a bonfire. telling stories. And he's a Métis man, and he's very, very passionate about his Métis culture. And he tells that story at the dog yard before going out and meeting the dogs. And, he talks about the relationship with those dogs. And it's an amazing experience. There's 15 other Churchill operators that we have up there that are also Indigenous. We have Leroy Whitmore from Subarctic Explorers. He's our only Inuit operator in Manitoba right now. And he'll take you on a tour, show you around Churchill. You'll go look for polar bears or wildlife, and he'll tell like his story and his upbringing, and you get to know him a little bit, and he's just like a kind, gentle soul. And, that's what travelers are really looking for. They're really looking for a connection and that education behind, Indigenous people and hearing their stories. And that's what's really contributing to reconciliation. We have a few operators around Winnipeg here. We have Longplain, who has the Wyndham Garden Winnipeg Airport Hotel. They have the restaurant there, and they have Indigenous chefs and food. We have Diane Meta Washing out at Bannock Point Petroforms. She leads a guided tour over there, and she tells the history and the creation story of the various rock formations that are out there. There's like a sky woman, a serpent, and so you go out there and you're out on the land and you get to hear that creation story. We have workshop providers who are, Métis beaters, soapstone carvers that you can go and sit and have a carve your own soapstone. We have the Manitoba Indigenous Cultural Education Center. They put workshops together. And the National Indigenous Residential School Museum. So those are just a few that we're working with that are providing, really contributing to reconciliation when it comes to telling those stories. And we actually have 182 experiences in Manitoba.
Wow.
Different levels of, tourism readiness.
Okay.
We work pretty closely with about 70 of them who we feel are really involved or have high potential to be involved in the travel trade.
Wow. Holy smokes. That sounds so incredible. Have you been to the experience in Churchill with David Daly? That sounds, oh my God, I want to go. I want to go.
You have to go. Yeah.
That sounds so amazing.
Actually, he also does not like full time, but he also offers this other e-biking experience where you can rent out an e-bike and get a guided tour in the summertime. And that was my favorite experience, like riding around Churchill on an e-bike. And yeah.
Amazing. So it sounds like people who they have an idea, they have an Indigenous experience, so something that's natural to them or their culture, their upbringing, storytelling. This is what you're looking for people to come to the organization. This is who you support.
Yeah, we support, that's like a cultural experience. In order to be a part of Indigenous tourism in Manitoba, you don't necessarily have to be, providing anything culturally. Like we do have accommodations that are Indigenous owned that don't have anything like cultural at the accommodations, but because they're Indigenous owned and a part of tourism. We do have them on the list. But these travelers, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for that kind of cultural education and stories behind Indigenous peoples.
I love it. How many times are people sitting around with these ideas like, hey, we should do this? And to know that there's actually an organization that you can take your idea to and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking of doing. But there are standards. There are areas that people have to work on before they can offer their services to the international industry, correct?
Yeah, and that's some of the work that we do at Indigenous Tourism Manitoba is helping these Indigenous businesses or people who are Indigenous looking to start an Indigenous tourism business, we help them understand this industry and that there are standards that need to be met in order to be a part of this, the tourism industry. We call them market-ready criteria that needs to be met. And that's what we do. We really try to help those businesses become market ready so that they can be involved in the mainstream tourism industry. And we also act like, we also connect those businesses who are market ready with mainstream tourism partners to get them in those packages, so that people who are looking to come to Canada, we have Indigenous experience as a part of those packages.
Amazing. What stage should people be at? Like what stage of their business concept should they be at when they come to you?
They could be at any stage. We have a lot of people who are just have an idea. They really want to know if it's feasible. They're looking for resources. Where do I apply for funding? Where can I get a feasibility study drafted up? That kind of stuff. So we can help them navigate that system and get them the help that they need.
That's so exciting. So one of the things that I share with my entrepreneurs as a coach is, if you have an idea, if there's an idea that comes to you for a business that you want to share with someone, there's an audience waiting to hear it. And I believe that's the same in every industry and with every idea. And so we have people of all ages that have these ideas that they just want to share with someone, or they just want to start a business, Indigenous owned. That's amazing that you support all of those entrepreneurs.
Yeah, for sure. And, like I mentioned in the beginning, it's definitely a passion. And we have a very passionate team at Indigenous Tourism Manitoba. We have a product development contractor and a project manager. Our board, we're all Indigenous people. We're 100% Indigenous-led organization. So we know what the people need and the barriers that exist. And we're passionate, and we really want to help people get their businesses off the ground and contribute to the economy and, provide for their families and make their own source of income.
And it's also really a network that I think is really valuable to people, right? Because when you start a business, especially if you're going into an industry like tourism, where potentially your clientele is all over the world, but also here in Manitoba, and it's so helpful to have a network of people. So are there opportunities for the entrepreneurs to meet others?
Yeah, for sure. At Indigenous Tourism Manitoba, we offer training. And we did training in Opaskwayak Cree Nation. So we brought together these tourism operators from the area to come together and talk about their ideas, what they're doing, barriers that they're running into. We talk about travel trade and, those market-ready standards that they need to meet, how we can help. We did some training up in Churchill. We had 15 operators show up there. And we're actually having another training session for our Winnipeg and surrounding area operators so they can come together and have those discussions and, create that community for themselves within the tourism industry.
So exciting. So if people want to reach out and learn more, is there a number online that they can call, and do you answer the phone? How do they reach out?
Well, check out our website, indigenoustourisammanitoba.ca, and we have a contact us form there. So we prefer email. That's how you can get a hold of us.
Thanks, Holly. Thanks for being here and sharing that. So exciting. And so to anyone listening, if you have an idea, you got to call Holly. You got to have a conversation and really allow those ideas to develop. So thanks for being here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for your time. Miigwech ekose merci. Get in touch with me on Instagram or my website at jessicadumas.ca.